This weekend marks a push to fundamentally change the way South Australia gets its electricity. A public rally in Port Augusta is calling for a solar thermal plant to replace the country's dirtiest coal-fired power station. And while the proposal has many hurdles to clear before it becomes a reality, it has one crucial backing, both from the city and from the company that owns the power station.
This ancient land holds the key to unlocking a high-tech, sustainable future, or at least that's what some people are hoping.
Yeah, it just depends how far you're going to look ahead. You know, how long are human beings going to survive on this planet? Well, no one knows. Well, you're going to have to use what nature provides, which is what we learnt a very long time ago in our business.
Bruce Nutt's family has been here since the 1890s. Sheep have been the mainstay since then. But now Bruce Nutt is in negotiations that could see another wind farm built on this range. The really new thing, though, is a solar thermal plant, and the farmer thinks this could be a good spot for it.
Whether you believe in climate change or not, I'll never live long enough to get an answer out of that one. But the way I look at it is, why should we burn all that fossil fuel now? It's a pretty handy chemical.
The plant has been proposed by a non-profit, non-government organisation called Beyond Zero Emissions. It's effectively a lobby group for green technologies, and that's why Mark Ogue is in Port Augusta.
Beyond Zero Emissions doesn't stand to make any gain from this being built. We're purely a not-for-profit research and education group that looks at renewable energy solutions.
Their hope is that a solar thermal plant will replace this. It's the coal-fired Playford power station at Port Augusta. For every unit of electricity produced here, this is the dirtiest power station in the country.
We produce around about 1.7 tonnes of CO2 for every megawatt hour of production from the Playford power station. Playford's a very old power station, and as a consequence of that, its efficiency and the quality of coal leads it to that unfortunate tag, yes.
The carbon tax is designed to see it close down and hopefully be replaced with something cleaner. If that were a solar thermal plant, this is what it could look like. The Hema solar plant, which was recently commissioned in Spain. In a thumbnail sketch, this is how Beyond Zero Emissions describe it working. The mirrors concentrate sunlight on this tower, which in turn heats a molten salt mixture to about 600 degrees. It's stored to produce steam to drive generators. They can produce electricity according to demand, just like a coal-fired station. And that, according to supporters, makes solar thermal the holy grail of renewable energy.
Thermal power is able to store energy as heat and dispatch that energy at any time, so it's essentially base load or dispatchable solar power, and you can't get that with wind or solar PV because they're variable.
So far, a gas-fired plant has dominated discussion over likely Playford replacements. But for that to happen in Port Augusta, a gas pipeline would need to be built to the city. Alinta has always said it needs government assistance to do that. But now Jeff Dimery sounds a little less confident of the pipeline happening than he was a few months ago.
I suppose thus far various federal, state governments are very supportive of the concept of building that type of infrastructure, but to this point there's been, I suppose, no contribution has been offered in terms of the cost of building that pipeline.
Then there's the price of gas. Alinta and Beyond Zero Emissions both say new big gas export contracts will link Australian prices to world prices.
What will end up happening is you get the same volatility that we're currently getting at the petrol pump at the light switch. So it's really important that South Australia doesn't fall into that trap.
It's that uncertainty that Alinta's Jeff Dimery says has brought the idea of solar thermal into play in his company's planning. It doesn't need a pipeline and it can use Port Augusta's existing infrastructure and its workforce. And it would make Playford's sister station, the coal-fired northern plant, a lot more efficient.
One of the things that we're particularly interested in is whether or not we can create a hybrid where we can interconnect the solar thermal solution to the existing coal-fired solution, which would not only generate renewable energy but also help with the thermal efficiency of the existing coal-fired power station. That's our preference. All things being equal, I would definitely favour renewables. We're going to live in a carbon-constrained future. Zero emissions is a very attractive proposition. We are mindful, of cost to consumers ultimately. So, for an investment like this to get off the ground, we will require, external assistance in terms of funding. Otherwise, the cost that we would need to pass on to consumers would make the product prohibitive.
That remains the crucial stumbling block, even with rising gas prices. The Gillard government has set aside $10 billion for a clean energy fund coming out of the carbon tax. Mark Ogue argues it should be used to build things like a solar thermal plant. On Saturday, Beyond Zero Emissions is holding a public forum in Port Augusta to drum up support.
Now is the most appropriate time, I believe, in our history to forge ahead. I don't see any visionary coming out of Canberra, and I believe that this community and the region really have to be masters of our own destiny.
Does making it a gas-fired plant strike you as visionary?
No, it's limited.
Joy Balouche has been in local politics since 1970, most of the time as mayor. A solar thermal plant, she says, would be the most exciting thing that's ever happened to her city.